Woo! Why ain't cast Tiffany Haddish up in this mini-series? How in the hell did y'all slip lesbianism up in there? Fifth lie. Peace, love, and light, African people. It is the Goddess MoorKnight. This is the Blackest truth, where I take the not so easy topic of racism, white supremacy, break it down and make it easier for us to maneuver through. Recently, Netflix had its own original mini-series titled Self-Made, inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker. It debuted Friday, March the 20th in a 4-episode mini-series, and it for sure was an inspiration. I have 12 lies that were either totally fabricated, were truths that were stretched, or just totally irrelevant all around. Thank you to everyone who has contributed to the channel. I really appreciate what you all have done, and do not forget that we will be having that giveaway. I will be giving out this canvas this Friday, and you can enter in as many times as you want to. 12 things Netflix lied about in this Madam C.J. Walker series. Let's get into it. First, Addie Monroe, played by Carmen Ejoko, did not in fact travel to Indianapolis to sabotage Sarah Walker's legacy. The entire story of her moving her business, being beaten up by her husband, having a black eye, and then trying to sabotage Sarah Walker was a total fabrication of Netflix. Annie Malone, in fact, was born in 1869 in Metropolis, Illinois. She would have two parents that would suffer illness, and both passed within a small time frame. She would then go off to move with her older sister in Peoria, Illinois, where she would find that she has a love for chemistry. Through her love for chemistry, she would start dabbling into hair making products and figuring out how to create a product that not only grows the hair, but simultaneously also straightens it. From there, in 1902, she would move to St. Louis to prepare for the World's Fair. Many black people were commuting and moving to St. Louis, and she knew it would be a booming time for her business, so she decided to sell her products there. In 1903, she would meet, at the time, Sarah McWilliams, who would then go off to become a sales representative for her. After working for her for some time, Sarah McWilliams would marry C.J. Walker, go off to create her own hair care products, and then be accused by Annie Malone of stealing her idea or coming up with her concept. I'm gonna get more into this later, but the very first lie that Netflix told is that Annie Malone, or Addie Monroe in this case, traveled to Indianapolis to sabotage Madam C.J. Walker's business. Note 2, Addie Monroe was not biracial. I need y'all to listen to that. Addie Monroe, otherwise as Annie Malone in real life, was not biracial. Netflix made it seem like the undertone and one of the main takeaways of the series is that a brown complected melanated black woman had to struggle against her light-skinned counterpart who felt as if because she was biracial, she had more of an advantage. And had she just taken her up on the opportunity to go into business with her, she would have never had to do her own product care line. What they did is create a false interpretation in the minds of the people that are actually watching this. Not everybody is going to go and look up all of these things. A lot of people, especially black people, are going to take this movie, this mini-series, at face value and go off to think, wow, it was a light-skinned black woman that did all of that and she thought she was too good. See, a lot of them be thinking the same, trying to sabotage our businesses, and we gotta work twice as hard. How many times in the movie did you see Sarah Walker reiterate to Lelia, you have to work harder? She said that in the mini-series, and she alluded to skin color on more than one occasion, and the whole identity and principle of colorism within this mini-series was created by Netflix. This not only feeds the stereotype of black women not being able to get along in less melanated versus more melanated, or light skin versus dark skin, this not only reiterates that stereotype, but what this does is it draws the claim that any black woman who has more melanated skin is resentful or envious. Not every single black woman is dissatisfied with her skin color. You have chocolate, vanilla, mahogany, and chestnut women that are very satisfied with their skin tone and they don't want to be anything else. And by them creating a whole false concept of colorism that didn't even have to exist, they're low-key saying, see, light skin is what all black women want to be. Nah, y'all could have totally left that out. 3. They both were successful businesswomen who went off to open up colleges and were both philanthropists. Annie Malone herself did so well in business that she had to expand in 1910. By 1918, she would open up her school, Poor old college would go over to employ black women, have a dormitory, a dining hall, offices. And she also went off to do a lot of the philanthropic work that Madam C.J. Walker went off to do. Madam C.J. Walker herself not only built her villa, which was named after Lelia, the designer of that villa, Vertner Tandy, was also one of the founding members of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. She also in 1908 would move to Pittsburgh with C.J. Walker, her husband at the time, and open up a beauty parlor and Lelia College. Both ladies were doing their thing. Did Annie Malone call out Madam C.J. Walker for stealing her concept and her petroleum and sulfur based product? Yes. She did call her out for stealing her blueprint. Essentially, she would go off to train her biggest rival. And although there was previous tension, there wasn't the type of tension that Netflix displayed of where Annie Malone was out to get Sarah Walker's business. The fourth thing that Netflix lied about was she went to Indianapolis and she stayed married to CJ this entire time. Shortly after that, in 1913, she divorced CJ Walker and she did it expeditiously. The story, and I have all the sources left down below, is that she got ransom to hurry up and expedite the divorce because not only did CJ cheat, but he also was careless with the business. So on the miniseries, it looks like they had been in Indianapolis for a long time and the building had burnt down and CJ was by her side the entire time. Nah. Wasn't like that. The fifth lie. Lelia, played by Tiffany Haddish in this movie, who in real life was born Lelia McWilliams and later changed her name to Lelia Walker. Tiffany Haddish, by the way, was a mess. She was just ghetto AF. Either way, Netflix totally lied about Lelia being lesbian. There was no Esther. The ladies that she had got acquainted with in this miniseries, they didn't exist in real life. That was a total fabrication. That was that LGBT trend I've been telling y'all about. Yeah, that's that. You got the boys over here believing they can be princesses. You got black men on the red carpet looking a certain type of way. You got actresses and screenwriters and athletes. You got it everywhere. Now you done slipped it into a historical miniseries. How the hell are we trying to learn about how they were supposed to have created relaxer and gotten wealthy off creating a straightening hair product? Lelia was not lesbian. She herself did not have a girlfriend and actually was married 3 times. Sixth lie that Netflix told, I'ma say potentially could have told. While CJ did cheat on Sarah with Dora Laurie, how do we know that that was the true depiction of Dora? Seeing as how they lied about Addie Monroe's complexion and made her biracial, at this point I can't trust that the appearance of Dora Laurie on the Netflix miniseries is parallel to the true Dora Laurie in real life. Not to mention at the end of the miniseries it said no known photos existed of CJ and Dora. So with that being said, y'all kind of don't know how she looks, therefore she might have not even been biracial. And then furthermore, you paint Octavia Spencer, who plays Madam C.J. Walker, to be this insecure black woman who's continuously reminded that she doesn't have the Gibson girl features. You keep reiterating that in each episode, letting it be known to the viewer that this is what was going on in Madam C.J. Walker's life and in her head. But seeing as how you lied about Addie Monroe being biracial, I can't trust that that's a true depiction of Dora. So I'm gonna say you lied about that too. I just think it's safer to say that might have been blurred. 7, Sarah was not self-made. The name of the title of the Netflix series is Self-Made. If you look at this, Ransom, Freeman Ransom, CJ at one point, if you look at the sources down below and you even look throughout Sarah's life, CJ influenced her to take the name. He influenced her to branch off and truly come up with her own hair care products. Lelia was very instrumental in getting her business off. She had 2 other attorneys that helped her business grow. She was a woman who had a very strong support system. So this whole idea of self-made is a reiteration of the concept of the feminism, of the independent black woman. Get it on your own. You don't need no help. Self-sufficient. That wasn't truly the case. While I'm not saying she wasn't a woman who could get things done on her own, what I am saying is she was not self-made. She was definitely supported. She definitely had a team around her that allowed her her to become the woman that we're still talking about to this day. 8th lie of the Netflix miniseries. There was no misogynistic argument between Sarah Walker and Booker T. Washington. That didn't happen. That was a total fabrication of Netflix. Furthermore, you make it seem like Booker T. Washington tells Sarah that she needs to stay in her place. Even in episode 3, Booker T. Washington was referred to as the Great Compromiser. Meanwhile, W.E.B. Du Bois looks like he's a great hero. If you know true history, you would know that W.E.B. Du Bois is partly responsible in the destruction of Marcus Messiah Garvey. If you put Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois together, you probably still couldn't amount to the African pride that that man possessed alone. So Booker T. Washington being portrayed as this misogynistic man who didn't let women speak, and also someone who pulled Sarah to the side and told her how rude she was, it didn't happen. Lie. 9th lie that Netflix told. Madam C.J. Walker never met John D. Rockefeller. One thing to note is the miniseries did point out how Spelman College was named after John D. Rockefeller's wife. It was good to be reminded that our historically black colleges are named after European people. But the conversation that she has with Rockefeller did not happen. In larger part, the comments that she made about John D. Rockefeller and other white European males were not things that she said in real life. However, you did keep hearing her say, I want to be as big as Rockefeller. We can be as big as Rockefeller. There was no evidence of that conversation happening. And if we want the closest depiction of story of accuracy, it would be in our best investment to purchase On Your Own Ground by her granddaughter, Lelia bundles. The 10th lie that Netflix told, and I think this should be the biggest dead giveaway. Netflix made it seem like Madam C.J. Walker didn't pay attention to her husband and she didn't take his advertisement advice. Do y'all see? C.J. was so good at advertising, many of us didn't know her name wasn't Madam C.J. Walker. This woman was born Sarah Breedlove, married a man by the last name Walker, became Sarah Walker, and then named herself Madame C.J. Walker. Clearly, he must be good at some damn advertising because he passed away in 1926 and she's a pioneer walking around with his name. That's a hell of an advertising. I'm so serious. Y'all can't miss that. They making this brother seem like his advertising ideas wasn't taken seriously. He is the one who actually not only encouraged her to take his name, but he encouraged her to branch off on her own and brand it as, instead of Wonderful Hair Grower, to Madam C.J. Walker Hair Products. So the brother was a very great businessman. They actually met in St. Louis. Madam C.J. Walker, who at the time was named Sarah McWilliams, moved with Lelia to St. Louis in 1888. She lived there with her brothers who were barbers, but don't let Netflix fool you. C.J. Walker was a finesse at advertising. 11th thing, Leila's husband John Robinson didn't collude with Annie Malone and he didn't set the house on fire. There was no fire. Firstly, Addie Malone wasn't in Indianapolis. Remember, she never left St. Louis once she moved there. Addie couldn't even be in contact with John Robinson because they weren't even in the same state. So that is a total fabrication of Netflix. Pay attention how so many times in the series, Madam C.J. Walker emasculated John. And even at times she emasculated C.J. But we don't know if this was truly who she was. We don't know if she was an I type of person. This is my company. I built this. If I can't grow it, we don't know if that's how the queen was. At this point, throw the whole series away. And then lastly, the 12th thing that Netflix lied about and got wrong. Sarah Walker's husband did not give up the fact that she stole Annie Malone's recipe. Annie Malone had already known Madam C.J. Walker took her blueprint, and that's partly why C.J. and her moved off to Pennsylvania to start their own thing. Addie Monroe did not follow Sarah to Indianapolis. She stayed in St. Louis to grow her own business. This was a rivalry that was created about a colorism that didn't have to exist, that was painted on screen. Pay attention to the fact that these women both created products to clarify the skin, which are synonymous words for coloristic lightening, and they also created hair care products that would straighten out your hair. But in this mini series, you would think that black women were in love with their natural hair. Leila's supposed girlfriend always had her natural hair. So my question was, why add in the colorism aspect if that wasn't real, and not tell the underlying story of how these women actually created the relaxer? or created products that would go off to become the relaxer. Why not talk about that? I think Netflix really diluted the story and history of Madam C.J. Walker, and I think they even diluted what should have been the aim. I was trying to get the understanding of why she created the relaxer and why she created a hair straightening product. And somewhere in this miniseries, I got that she was resentful and that's why she worked so hard. And her counterpart, who in fact wasn't biracial, was trying to sabotage her business, which also wasn't the case. It would actually be Annie Malone who would go off to suffer a divorce that would take a lot of her wealth, and furthermore have a disgruntled employee try to totally sabotage her legacy. So Addie Monroe actually suffered the fate that they tried to put on Madam C.J. Walker in a miniseries. White supremacy, folks. This is why we must have our own movies. That is one thing that I'm taking away from this. At this point, they done lied about so much shit. Throw the series away. You ain't gotta lie about everything. Damn. It is the Goddess Neath Night. This is the Blackest Truth. I